The trading station hung in the darkness between stars like a forgotten toy. Its metal corridors echoed with the sounds of 100 different species, all trying to make deals, find work, or simply survive another day. Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the main marketplace, her boots clicking against the worn deck plates. She had been here many times before, but something felt different today. The Kithra were everywhere. These wolf-like aliens usually traveled in small groups, but Elena counted at least 50 of them scattered throughout the station. Their fur ranged from deep black to silver white, and their eyes glowed with an inner light that made humans uncomfortable. Most aliens found the Kithra intimidating. They were natural hunters with sharp teeth and claws that could tear through metal. But Elena had worked with them before. She knew they were more than just predators. Captain Vasquez, a small voice called from behind a stack of cargo containers. Elena turned and saw something that made her heart skip. A young Kithra, barely knee-high, peeked out from behind the boxes. The cub's fur was a soft brown color, and its eyes were wide with fear. Elena had never seen a Kithra cub before. Their species was very protective of their young, keeping them hidden in their home territories. "Hey there, little one," Elena said softly, crouching down to the cub's level. "Are you okay?" The cub looked around nervously before stepping closer. "Are you the human who helps people?" Elena was surprised. How did this cub know about her? She did have a reputation for taking on rescue missions and helping those in need, but she didn't think word had spread to the Kithra. "I try to help when I can," Elena said. "What's wrong?" The cub's ears drooped. "Our pack is lost," it whispered. Those 4 words hit Elena like a physical blow. Among the Kithra, losing your pack was worse than death. They were social creatures who lived in tight family groups. Without their pack, a Kithra was nothing. The fact that this cub was alone meant something terrible had happened. "What's your name?" Elena asked gently. "Zura," the cub replied. "I'm 7 seasons old." 7 seasons meant the cub was still very young by Kithra standards. Elena's mind raced. Where were the adult Kithra she had seen around the station? Why wasn't anyone looking after this cub? "Zara, where are your parents?" "Your pack elders." The cub's tail tucked between its legs. "They say I'm cursed. They say I brought bad luck to our pack. Now our pack is lost in the dead zone, and it's all my fault." Elena felt anger rising in her chest. The Kithara could be superstitious, but abandoning a cub was unthinkable. She had to know more. "Tell me what happened," Elena said, sitting cross-legged on the deck to appear less threatening. Zara looked around once more, then sat down facing Elena. "Our pack was traveling to the new hunting grounds in the Kepler sector. I was with the scouting group when we found a strange ship. It was all black and covered in symbols I had never seen before. The adults told me not to touch anything, but I was curious." The cub paused, its ears flattening against its head. "I touched one of the symbols. There was a bright flash, and when it faded, the ship was gone. But something followed us home." "What kind of something?" Elena asked. "Shadows that moved on their own. They whispered things in languages we didn't understand. They made the stars go dark. Our pack tried to fight them, but you can't fight shadows. We had to run." Elena knew about the dead zones. They were areas of space where ships disappeared, where strange things happened that science couldn't explain. Most spacers avoided them, but sometimes you had no choice but to go through. "Where's your pack now?" "They went into the Vorthan dead zone 3 days ago. The shadows followed them. I wanted to go too, but the pack leader said I had to stay behind. He said I was the reason the shadows came, and I would only make things worse." Tears began to form in the cub's large eyes. "They told the other packs here what happened. Now everyone knows I'm cursed. No one will take me. I have no pack." Elena felt her heart break a little. This cub had been abandoned by its own people, left alone on a space station full of strangers. Among humans, this would be considered child abuse. Among the Kithra, it was apparently acceptable if you believe in curses. "Zara, listen to me," Elena said firmly. "You're not cursed. What happened with that ship wasn't your fault. You're just a cub. Cub curiosity is normal. But the shadows came because of that ship, not because of you. Bad things happen in space sometimes. It's not always someone's fault." Elena stood up and held out her hand. "Come with me. I'm going to help you." The cub looked up at her with hope and fear mixed in its expression. "You would help a cursed cub?" "You're not cursed," Elena repeated. "And yes, I'll help you. But first, I need to know more about this dead zone and what your pack might be facing." Zara took Elena's hand with its small, furry paw. You really think they might still be alive? Pack bonds are strong among your people, Elena said. If there's even a small chance they're alive, we're going to find them. As they walked through the station, Elena noticed the stares from other Kithara. Some looked angry, others seemed afraid. A few made gestures that Elena recognized as wards against bad luck. It was clear that word had spread about Zara being cursed. They reached Elena's ship, the Wandering Star, a medium-sized cargo vessel that Elena had modified for long-range exploration and rescue operations. The ship wasn't pretty, but it was tough and reliable. "Welcome to my ship," Elena said as they entered the airlock. "It's not much, but it's home." Zara's eyes went wide as they entered the main corridor. "It smells like metal and ozone and something else." "That something else is probably my coffee maker," Elena laughed. "Humans drink a lot of coffee." The ship's computer chimed as they entered the bridge. "Welcome back, Captain. I see you have a passenger." "This is Zara," Elena said. "She's going to be staying with us for a while. Computer, please add her to the crew roster as a temporary passenger." "Acknowledged." "Zara, welcome aboard the Wandering Star." The cub jumped at the sound of the computer's voice. "It talks." "She talks," Elena corrected. "The computer has a personality matrix. Think of her as another crew member." Elena sat down at her command console and began pulling up star charts. "Now, Zara, I need you to show me exactly where your pack went." The cub climbed onto a chair next to Elena and studied the holographic display. After a moment, it pointed to a region of space marked with warning symbols. "There," Zara said. "The Vorthan Dead Zone." Elena whistled low. The Vorthan Dead Zone was one of the worst. Ships that entered it either never came back or returned with their crews missing or insane. The few survivors who made it out told stories of impossible things. Time moving backward, gravity flowing upward, voices calling from empty space. "Captain," the computer said, "I must advise against entering the dead zone. Our ship is not equipped for anomalous space conditions." "What kind of equipment would we need?" Elena asked. "Unknown. No one fully understands what causes dead zone phenomena. Most theories involve dimensional distortions or exotic matter fields." Elena turned to Zara. "What kind of ships did your pack have?" "3 hunting vessels and 1 transport," the cub replied. "Fast ships, built for chasing prey across star systems." "Good. Fast ships have a better chance in a dead zone. They can get in and out quickly." Elena began plotting a course. It would take them 18 hours to reach the edge of the dead zone. That would give her time to prepare and gather more information. Computer, sent a message to Dr. Marcus Webb at the Xenological Research Institute. "Tell him I need everything he has on shadow entities and dead zone phenomena." Message sent, Captain. Elena looked down at Zara, who had curled up in the chair like a small animal seeking warmth. "Are you hungry?" The cub nodded. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. The traders here won't sell food to a cursed cub." Elena's anger flared again. "Well, you're not cursed, and you're definitely eating. Come on, let's see what we have in the galley." As they headed to the ship's small kitchen area, Elena's mind was already working on the problem. She had rescued people from dead zones before, but never from one as dangerous as Vorthan. The shadow Zara described sounded like something she had encountered once before in the Omega Nebula. That mission had cost her 3 crew members and nearly her sanity. But looking at the small, abandoned cub walking beside her, Elena knew she had no choice. She couldn't leave a child's family to die in the darkness, no matter how dangerous the rescue might be. "Elena," Zara said quietly as they reached the galley. "Yes. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for not thinking I'm cursed." Elena knelt down and looked the cub in the eyes. "Zara, listen to me very carefully. You're not cursed. You're not responsible for what happened to your pack. You are a brave, curious cub who made a mistake. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them and try to help others." Zara nodded solemnly. "Will you teach me how to help? If you want to learn, I'll teach you everything I can." As Elena prepared a simple meal for the cub, she thought about what lay ahead. The Vorthan Dead Zone was a place where reality bent and broke, where the laws of physics became suggestions. Taking a child into such a place was probably insane. But she had made a promise, and Elena Vasquez always kept her promises. "Computer," she called out, "begin pre-flight checks. Plot a course for the Vorthan Dead Zone. Maximum safe speed." "Course plotted, Captain." Pre-flight sequence initiated. Elena watched Zara eat with the desperate hunger of someone who hadn't had a proper meal in days. The cub was small and vulnerable, abandoned by its own kind out of superstition and fear. But Elena saw something else in those large, intelligent eyes: determination. Maybe Zara wasn't cursed after all. Maybe the cub was exactly what Elena needed for this impossible mission. Sometimes the most unlikely companions made the best heroes. Zara, Elena said as the cub finished eating, I want you to tell me everything you remember about those shadows. Every detail, no matter how small. If we're going to save your pack, I need to understand what we're up against. The cub nodded seriously. I'll tell you everything. But Elena? Yes. What if they really are all dead? What if we're too late? Elena was quiet for a moment. It was a fair question, and one she had asked herself many times on rescue missions. Sometimes you were too late. Sometimes people died despite your best efforts. But that didn't mean you stopped trying. Then, we'll know for sure, Elena said finally. And we'll make sure their sacrifice meant something. But, Zara, I've learned something in all my years out here. People are tougher than they look. Love is stronger than fear. And sometimes when everything seems hopeless, that's exactly when miracles happen. The cub considered this. You really believe that? I have to, Elena said. Otherwise, what's the point of trying? As the wandering star prepared for departure, Elena felt the familiar mix of excitement and terror that came before a dangerous mission. She was about to take a child into one of the most dangerous regions of space to rescue people who might already be dead, based on nothing but hope and stubbornness. It was exactly the kind of impossible task that made her feel alive. Computer, take us out, Elena commanded. Departing dock, Captain. Course set for the Vorthen dead zone. Elena looked down at Zura, who had moved to the observation window to watch the stars wheel by. The cub's reflection in the glass looked small and lost, but there was something else there too. Purpose. Your pack isn't lost, Elena said quietly. Not while we're looking for them. And as the wandering star accelerated into the darkness between stars, Elena began to plan what might be the most dangerous rescue of her career. 18 hours later, the wandering star reached the edge of the Vorthen dead zone. Elena stood on the bridge, studying the sensor readings with growing concern. The space ahead looked normal to the naked eye, just stars scattered across the cosmic dark. But the ship's instruments told a different story. Captain, the computer announced, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies ahead. Space-time distortion readings are off the scale. Elena nodded grimly. She had expected this. Dead zones weren't called dead for nothing. What about life signs? Sensors are having difficulty penetrating the distortion field. However, I am picking up faint energy signatures that could be Kithara ships. Zara pressed against the bridge window, her small hands leaving prints on the glass. Are they alive? We won't know until we get closer, Elena said. But those energy signatures are a good sign. Elena had spent the journey preparing for this moment. She had reviewed every piece of data about dead zones she could find. Dr. Webb had sent files on shadow entities, dimensional rifts, and theoretical physics that made her head hurt. But buried in all that technical language, she had found some useful information. Shadow entities were thought to be creatures from parallel dimensions. They fed on fear and despair, growing stronger when their victims lost hope. The key to fighting them wasn't weapons or shields, but willpower and emotional strength. Computer, begin recording everything, Elena ordered. If something happens to us, at least there will be a record. Recording initiated, Captain. Elena turned to Zara. I need you to do something very important. These shadow creatures feed on negative emotions. When we go in there, you need to think about good things. Think about your pack, about the times you were happy. Can you do that? The cub nodded seriously. I'll think about pack hunt songs and the stories my grandmother used to tell. Good. And Zara? If things get really bad, I want you to go to the escape pod bay. Promise me. What about you? Don't worry about me. I've been in bad situations before. Elena turned back to the controls. Computer, take us in. Half impulse power, all sensors on maximum. The wandering star crossed into the dead zone, and immediately everything changed. The stars outside twisted into strange spirals. Colors that had no names painted the darkness. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Captain, the computer's voice sounded strained. I'm experiencing processing difficulties. My quantum matrix is being affected by the dimensional distortions. Stay with me, girl, Elena muttered. We need you. The ship shuddered as it moved deeper into the anomaly. Elena watched the sensor displays, trying to make sense of the impossible readings. Time seemed to flow in different directions in different parts of the zone. In some areas, the ship's chronometer ran backward. In others, it raced forward. There! Zara suddenly pointed ahead. I can smell them. Elena looked where the cub was pointing and saw three dark shapes in the distance. Kithra hunting ships, drifting without power. As they got closer, Elena could see damage to their hulls, but the ships were intact. Life signs? Elena asked. Detecting multiple Kithra biosignatures, the computer replied. They appear to be alive, but in some kind of stasis. And the transport ship? Scanning. The transport is approximately 2 kilometers ahead. It appears to be caught in some kind of temporal loop. Elena frowned. What kind of temporal loop? The ship keeps repeating the same 10-second sequence over and over. It's moving forward, then snapping back to its starting position. This was worse than Elena had thought. Temporal distortions were among the most dangerous phenomena in dead zones. If the transport ship was stuck in a time loop, the crew inside might be experiencing those 10 seconds repeatedly for what felt like years. Can we break them out? Unknown, Captain. I would need to analyze the temporal field structure. Suddenly, the space around them began to darken. Not the normal darkness of space, but something deeper, something hungry. They're coming, Zara whispered. The shadows appeared gradually, seeping out of the space between stars like oil leaking from a cracked tank. They moved with purpose, flowing toward the wandering star and the disabled Kithra ships. Computer, raise shields. All power to defensive systems. Shields raised, but, Captain, I don't think conventional defenses will work against these entities. Elena could hear it now, the whispering Zara had described. Voices speaking in languages that hurt to listen to, promising terrible things. The shadows pressed against the ship's hull, and Elena felt their cold presence in her mind. You should not have come here, the voices said without words. This is our domain now. We feed on the fear of the pack. Soon there will be nothing but empty shells, and we'll be strong. Not if I have anything to say about it, Elena growled. She activated the ship's external floodlights, flooding the area with bright white light. The shadows recoiled slightly, but they didn't disappear. Light wasn't enough. Zara, I need you to do something, Elena said. I need you to sing. Sing. The cub looked confused. You mentioned pack hunt songs. Your people sing when they're together, when they're strong. These creatures feed on despair, but music is the opposite of despair. Music is hope and joy and connection. Sing for your pack. Zara looked uncertain, but then her small voice rose in a melody Elena had never heard before. It was beautiful and wild, full of harmony and pack unity. The song spoke of running under starlight, of family bonds that could never be broken, of the joy of the hunt and the warmth of the den. The effect was immediate. The shadows writhed as if in pain, pulling back from the ship. Where Zara's voice reached, the darkness became thinner. It's working, Elena said. Keep singing. Elena used the distraction to move the wandering star closer to the first Kithra hunting ship. She activated the docking tube and tried to establish a connection. Computer, can you wake up the crew of that ship? Attempting to interface with their systems. Captain, I'm reading strange neural patterns. The crew appears to be trapped in fear-induced comas. The shadow entities have been feeding on their terror for days. Elena gritted her teeth. Fear-induced comas were serious. If the Kithra had been trapped in nightmares for too long, they might not be able to wake up even if the shadows were driven away. Can you break through to them? I can try broadcasting a medical stimulus pattern. But Captain, someone needs to board that ship and provide direct neural contact. Elena looked at Zara, who was still singing. The cub's voice was getting stronger, more confident. The shadows were maintaining their distance, but Elena could feel their hunger growing. They wanted to break the song, to drown the ship in despair. I'm going over there, Elena decided. Keep the connection open, and whatever happens, keep Zara singing. Captain, that's extremely dangerous. If the shadows overwhelm you while you're alone on that ship, then you get Zara out of here and tell everyone what happened. But I'm not leaving these people to die in their nightmares. Elena grabbed an emergency kit and headed for the docking tube. As she sealed her helmet, she could hear Zara's song echoing through the ship's corridors. The melody gave her courage. The docking tube connected with a solid thunk. Elena cycled through the airlock and found herself in the dark corridors of the Kithra hunting ship. The air was stale and cold, and she could feel the presence of the shadows even here. Emergency lighting cast strange patterns on the walls as Elena made her way to the crew quarters. She found them there, for adult Kithra, curled up in their sleeping alcoves. Their eyes were open, but unseeing, their bodies twitching as if they were running from something terrible. "Computer, I'm at the crew quarters," Elena reported through her comm link. "Neural patterns indicate they're trapped in recursive fear loops. You need to make physical contact and provide a strong positive emotional anchor." Elena knelt beside the first Kithra, a female with silver fur. The warrior's eyes stared at nothing, but Elena could see the terror there. She placed her gloved hand on the Kithra's forehead. "Listen to me," Elena said firmly. "You're not alone. Your cub is safe. Zara is alive and singing for you." The Kithra's twitching lessened slightly. Elena could feel something happening, a connection forming. Through the bond, she sensed the nightmare the warrior was trapped in. Endless darkness, her pack scattered and lost, her cub crying for help she couldn't give. "That's not real," Elena said. "Your cub is on my ship right now, singing the old songs. She's brave and strong just like you. She led me here to find you." The connection deepened. Elena could feel the Kithra's consciousness stirring, fighting against the shadow-induced terror. But it wasn't enough. The fear was too deep, too strong. Then, Elena heard it. Zara's voice, coming through the ship's comm system. The cub had somehow linked into the communication array and was broadcasting her song directly to the hunting ship. The melody filled the corridors, driving back the shadows. The effect on the trapped Kithra was immediate. Her eyes focused on Elena's face, intelligence returning. "Human," she whispered in heavily accented standard. "Ow, what?" "Your cub brought me," Elena said simply. "She refused to give up on you." The warrior's eyes filled with tears. "Zara? She is alive? But she was cursed. She brought the shadows. She brought me," Elena corrected. "She saved you all, one by one." Elena woke the crew of the hunting ship. Each time, it was Zara's song that provided the strength needed to break through the fear. The shadows pressed against the ship's hull, but they couldn't penetrate the barrier of hope and music the young cub had created. "Captain," the computer's voice crackled through the comm. "I'm detecting movement from the other 2 hunting ships. The crews are beginning to wake up on their own." Elena smiled. Zara's song was reaching further than just this ship. The pack bonds were responding, each awakened Kithra adding their voice to the melody. What had started as one small cub song was becoming a chorus of defiance. "What about the transport?" Elena asked, still trapped in the temporal loop. "But, Captain, I think I know how to break it. The loop is sustained by the shadow's influence. If we could drive them far enough back, the temporal field should collapse." Elena helped the last Kithra warrior to his feet. The crew was weak but functional. They had been trapped in nightmares for 3 days, but the physical damage was minimal. "We need to get to the transport ship," Elena told them. "Your people are trapped in a time loop." The pack leader, the silver-furred female, nodded grimly. "We will follow you, human. Our cubs taught us the true meaning of courage today." Elena felt a warm glow at the words. As they made their way back to the docking tube, she could hear the song growing stronger. More voices joined in as the crews of the other hunting ships awakened. The shadows were retreating, unable to maintain their hold against the growing wave of hope and unity. But Elena knew the hardest part was still ahead. The transport ship was carrying the bulk of the pack, including elders and other cubs. If they had been trapped in the temporal loop for days, breaking them free would require more than just song. It would require a miracle. Fortunately, Elena had learned to make her own miracles. "Computer," she called as she reached the wandering star. "Prepare for a close approach to the transport ship, and give me everything you can on temporal field manipulation." "Data compile, Captain. But I should warn you, what we're about to attempt has never been successfully performed." Elena grinned. "Then we'll be the first." "Zara." The cub looked up from the communication console, where she had been coordinating the pack songs. "Yes, Elena. Are you ready to help save the rest of your pack?" Zara's eyes blazed with determination. "I was born ready." Elena laughed. Maybe the cub wasn't cursed after all. Maybe Zara was exactly the opposite, blessed with the kind of courage that could move stars. They're going to need all the courage they could get. The transport ship hung in space like a frozen moment, trapped in its endless 10-second loop. Elena watched through the bridge view screen as the massive vessel lurched forward, then snapped back to its starting position with mechanical precision. Inside that ship were 43 Kithara, including pack elders and cubs. They had been experiencing the same terrifying 10 seconds for 3 days. Computer, analysis complete? Elena asked. Temporal loop analysis finished, Captain. The phenomenon is created by convergence of shadow entity energy and gravitational distortion. The shadows are using the loop to trap the crew in a single moment of maximum terror. Elena studied the data, scrolling across her screen. The transport had been caught just as the shadows first attacked. The moment of realization, when the crew understood they were facing something beyond their comprehension, was being repeated endlessly. Can we break the loop from outside? Theoretical possibility exists. We would need to create a counter-resonance field using the ship's main deflector array. However, the power requirements would leave us defenseless if the shadows attack. Zara stood beside Elena's chair, her small hands gripping the armrest. They're suffering in there, aren't they? Elena nodded sadly. Every 10 seconds, they experience the terror of first seeing shadows. Over and over without understanding why. The 3 hunting ships had taken position around the transport, their crews adding their voices to Zara's song. The combined melody created a barrier that kept the shadows at bay, but Elena could see the dark entities circling like hungry predators. They were waiting for any sign of weakness. Pack leader Kaitha, Elena called to the silver-furred Kithara on the main screen. I need your ships to maintain the song barrier while we attempt to break the temporal loop. Can your crews handle that? Kaitha's ears twitched, and what Elena had learned was a Kithara gesture of determination. We will sing until our voices fail, human Elena. Our pack kin will not suffer alone. Good. Computer, begin charging the deflector array. Route all available power except life support and engines. Acknowledged. Charging deflector array to maximum. Warning. This will leave us with minimal defensive capability. Elena felt the familiar weight of command decisions. If she was wrong about this, she would be leaving everyone defenseless against the shadow entities. But if she did nothing, 43 Kithara would remain trapped in their nightmare forever. Zara, Elena said, I need you to do something very difficult. The cub looked up at her with trust that made Elena's heart ache. What do you need? I need you to reach out with your mind to the cubs on that transport. Your people have a pack bond, right? A mental connection? Yes, but the cubs are so far away, and they're scared. That's exactly why they need you. You're not scared anymore. You found help. You brought hope. They need to feel that through the pack bond. Zara closed her eyes, concentrating. Elena could see the effort on the cub's small face as she reached out across the distance to her packmates. I can feel them, Zara whispered. They're so frightened. They keep seeing the shadows coming over and over. They think they're going to die. Tell them they're not alone. Tell them help is coming. Tell them their sister cub has found humans who care about pack bonds. Elena watched the temporal loop through the view screen as Zara concentrated. For a moment, nothing changed. The transport ship continued its mechanical repetition, trapped in its prison of time. Then something shifted. The loop stuttered, lasting 11 seconds instead of 10. Elena's heart jumped. It's working. Zara, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Computer, begin counter-resonance pulse now. The wandering star's deflector array hummed to life, sending waves of energy toward the transport ship. The temporal field rippled like water disturbed by a thrown stone. The loop stretched to 12 seconds, then 13. But the effort was having an effect on the shadow entities. They sensed the disruption and began pressing closer, testing the boundaries of the song barrier. Elena could hear their whispers growing louder, more insistent. You cannot save them all, the voices hissed. You will fail, and we will feast on your despair. Deflector array at 80%, the computer announced. Temporal field showing signs of instability. Elena gripped her chair as the ship shuddered. The power drain was enormous, and she could see stress fractures appearing in the energy barrier around them. The hunting ships were maintaining their song, but Elena could hear strain in the voices. Elena, Zara said suddenly, the cubs are saying something. They say there's a way out, but it's dangerous. What kind of way? The transport has a quantum core, like your ship. If someone could get to the engine room and overload it just right, it would create a temporal shockwave. It would break the loop from inside. Elena's blood went cold. That's basically a controlled explosion inside a temporal distortion field. The person who did it might not survive, Zara finished. But pack leader Torvax says he'll do it. He says it's his duty to protect the cubs. Elena stared at the transport ship, her mind racing. Torvac was willing to sacrifice himself to save the others. It was exactly the kind of brave, stupid thing Elena might do herself. But there had to be another way. Computer analysis. Could we match the temporal frequency and beam someone aboard during the loop reset? Extremely dangerous, Captain. The transporter would have to compensate for temporal distortion, gravitational variance, and shadow entity interference. Success probability is approximately 12%. Better than zero, Elena muttered. She turned to Zara. Can you maintain the mental link while I'm gone? The cub's eyes went wide. You're going over there? Someone needs to help Torvac with the quantum core overload. And I've done stupid things with ship engines before. Elena, no. It's too dangerous. Elena knelt down to look Zara in the eyes. You taught me something today. You taught me that sometimes the smallest person can make the biggest difference. But you also taught me that no one should have to face their fears alone. Elena stood and headed for the transporter room. Computer, lock onto the transport's engine room. Prepare for temporal synchronized transport. Captain, Kytha's voice crackled over the comm. Our sensors show the shadow entities massing for an attack. They know what you're planning. Elena looked back at Zara one more time. The cub was standing by the communication console, small and brave and determined. Keep singing, Elena told her. No matter what happens, keep singing. The transporter room was cramped and filled with warning lights. Elena grabbed an emergency kit and stepped onto the transport pad. Through the view screen, she could see the transport ship completing another loop cycle. Computer, initiate transport now. The world dissolved into sparkles of light. Elena felt herself stretched across dimensions, pulled through distorted space-time while the transporter struggled to compensate for the temporal field. For a moment that lasted forever, she existed in multiple times simultaneously. Then, she rematerialized in the transport ship's engine room, stumbling as normal time reasserted itself. Around her, the air shimmered with temporal distortion. She could hear the crew on the bridge experiencing their moment of terror, the same gasps of fear she had heard dozens of times through the view screen. Human, a deep voice spoke from the shadows. Elena turned and saw the massive Kithara with dark fur and scarred hands. Pack leader Torvac. His eyes held the look of someone who had accepted death but hadn't given up the fight. You shouldn't have come, Torvac said. This is pack business. Your cub made it my business, Elena replied, moving to the quantum core controls. Besides, you're going to need help if you want to survive this. Torvac's ears flicked in surprise. Survive? Human, there is no surviving what we must do. There is if we're smart about it. Elena studied the core readouts. We don't need to create an explosion. We need to create a harmonic resonance that matches the temporal field frequency, like breaking a wine glass with a high note. You understand quantum engineering? Enough to be dangerous. Help me recalibrate these plasma injectors. Working together, Elena and Torvac began modifying the quantum core. Outside, Elena could hear the battle raging as the shadow entities pressed their attack against the song barrier. The hunting ships were holding, but she could hear exhaustion creeping into their voices. There, Elena said, finishing the calibration. This should create a controlled resonance cascade, but we'll need perfect timing. How perfect? We need to trigger it at the exact moment the loop resets. 1 second early or late, and the temporal shock could tear the ship apart. Torvac nodded grimly. Understand. Tell me what to do. Elena activated her comm link. Zara, can you hear me? Elena, are you okay? I'm fine. Listen, I need you to count down the loop reset. Tell me exactly when it's about to happen. Okay. The loop is at 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10 seconds. Reset. Elena triggered the resonance cascade. The quantum core hummed with barely controlled energy as it sent harmonic pulses through the ship's structure. The temporal field around them began to fluctuate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the universe seemed to hiccup. The endless 10-second loop stretched, wavered, and finally broke like a snapping rubber band. Normal time resumed with a rush. Elena heard voices throughout the ship as the crew realized they were free. The relief and joy in those voices was worth every risk she had taken. Transport crew, This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human ship Wandering Star. You're safe now. The temporal loop has been broken. Human, a new voice came over the ship's intercom. This is Pac Elder Morvain. How do we know you speak truth? Because your cub Zara brought me to find you, Elena replied. And because she's been singing for your freedom for the past hour? There was a long pause. Then, Elena heard something beautiful. The sound of an entire ship full of Kithra joining their voices to Zara's song. The melody swelled across the dead zone, and the shadows retreated further, unable to stand against such unified hope. Computer, Elena called through her comm. Can you get a transporter lock on the engine room? Affirmative, Captain. The temporal interference has cleared. To beam up. Elena and Torvak materialized on the Wandering Star's transporter pad. The Kithra pack leader looked around in amazement. A human ship? He said wonderingly. And you risked everything for strangers. Not strangers, Elena corrected as they headed for the bridge. Family. Zara made that clear. They reached the bridge to find controlled chaos. Zara was at the communications console, coordinating with all 4 Kithra ships. The cub looked up as Elena entered, and her face lit up with joy. Elena, you did it. The transport is free. Elena scooped the cub up in a hug, surprised by how natural it felt. We did it, all of us together. On the main screen, the shadow entities were retreating to the edges of the dead zone. Their food source, fear and despair, had been replaced with hope and unity. They had no power here anymore. Having friends who won't let you face your fears alone. Elena felt her eyes mist up at the simple wisdom in those words. Around the bridge, she could see similar emotions on the faces of the Kithra crew. Well then, Elena said, clearing her throat, I guess we all have some friends to get home safely. As the small fleet prepared to leave the dead zone, Elena looked out at the stars and smiled. She had come here to rescue a lost pack. Instead, she had found something much more valuable, proof that courage and compassion could overcome any darkness. And it had all started with one small cub who refused to give up hope. 3 days after leaving the Vorthan dead zone, the small fleet arrived at Kithra Prime, the homeworld of Zara's people. Elena had never seen anything quite like it. The planet was a mixture of vast forests and crystalline cities that seemed to grow from the landscape like natural formations. Ships moved through the atmosphere in graceful patterns that reminded Elena of pack hunting formations. It's beautiful, Elena said as they approached the orbital docking facility. Zara pressed her face against the observation window, her tail wagging with excitement. That's the singing forest where I was born. And there's the crystal caves where the pack elders meet. Oh, Elena, wait until you see everything. Over the past 3 days, Elena had watched the Kithra fleet transform. What had begun as a rescue mission had become something like a celebration. The crews of all 4 ships had taken turns visiting the Wandering Star, bringing gifts and stories. They wanted to learn about humans, about Elena's ship, about why someone from another species would risk everything for strangers. Elena found their curiosity refreshing. Most species she encountered were either afraid of humans or dismissive of them. The Kithra treated her like family. Captain Vasquez, pack leader Torvak's voice came over the comm from the lead hunting ship. Our people are requesting permission to dock. The pack council has declared a celebration of return. They wish to honor you properly. Elena hesitated. She had never been comfortable with ceremonies and formal recognition. Her job was to help people, not to be thanked for it. Elena, Zara said quietly, it would be rude to refuse. And besides, you should meet my grandmother. Your grandmother? She's on the pack council. She always said I would do something important someday. I want to show her she was right. Elena couldn't argue with that logic. Computer, prepare for orbital docking. Follow the Kithra ship's lead. As they docked at the massive station, Elena could see crowds gathering on the observation decks. Word of their return had spread quickly. She could see Kithra of all ages pressing against the windows, their eyes bright with curiosity and excitement. Captain, the computer said, I'm receiving a formal invitation to the surface. The pack council wishes to meet with you. Elena Sigid. I suppose we can't avoid it. Zara, you ready to go home? The cub nodded enthusiastically, but Elena noticed a shadow cross her expression. What's wrong? What if the other pack still think I'm cursed? What if they don't believe what really happened? Elena knelt down and put her hands on Zara's shoulders. Then we'll tell them the truth. All of it. And We'll keep telling it until they understand. The docking process took an hour. When the airlocks finally cycled open, Elena found herself facing a delegation of Kithra officials. They were all adults, their fur marked with the intricate patterns that denoted rank and status in Kithra society. At the head of the group stood an elderly female with silver fur and kind eyes. She looked at Zara and Elena with an expression Elena couldn't quite read. Pack leader Torvak, the elderly Kithra said, "You have returned from the dead zones with an interesting tale." "More than a tale, Elder Narathai," Torvak replied. "We have returned with proof that courage comes in many forms." Elder Narathai's gaze settled on Elena. "You are the human who entered the shadow realm for strangers." "I'm the human who couldn't let children suffer," Elena replied simply. The elder's ears twitched in what Elena was learning to recognize as approval. "And you, young Zara, you were cast out as cursed, but you returned as a hero." Zara stepped forward, her small head held high. "I returned with friends, grandmother." Elena's eyes widened. This was Zara's grandmother, the Pack Council elder who had believed in her. "Yes," Elder Narathai said with a smile in her voice. "I see that you have. Come, all of you. The Pack Council awaits, and there is much to discuss." They traveled to the surface in a transport that moved through the atmosphere like a falling leaf. Elena watched through the windows as they descended toward one of the crystalline cities. Up close, the architecture was even more impressive. The buildings seemed to pulse with their own light, and Elena could hear a faint humming that reminded her of Zara's pack songs. "The crystals are alive," Zara explained, noticing Elena's fascination. "They respond to our voices. The whole city is like one big instrument." The council chamber was at the heart of the city, a vast dome made of singing crystal that amplified every sound. As Elena and her companions entered, she could hear the harmonics created by their footsteps, turning simple walking into music. The Pack Council consisted of 12 elders, representing the major pack families of the planet. They sat in a circle around a central platform where Elena and Zara were invited to stand. Human Elena Vasquez, Elder Narathai, announced to the assembly, "You stand before the Pack Council of Kithra Prime. You have done a great service for our people. What do you ask in return?" Elena had been dreading this question. In her experience, formal ceremonies always ended with someone trying to give her things she didn't want or need. Money, titles, honors that felt empty compared to the simple satisfaction of helping others. "I asked for nothing," Elena said. "I did what anyone should do when children are in danger." The council exchanged glances. Elder Narathai leaned forward. "You asked for nothing? This is unusual. Most humans who help our people want trade agreements or mining rights," another elder added. "You seek no profit from your heroism." Elena shook her head. "The only profit I need is knowing that 43 people got to go home to their families." Zara stepped up beside Elena. "Elders, if I may speak." "You may, young one." Elena doesn't understand how important what she did really is. She doesn't just rescue people. She rescues hope. When I was alone on that station, abandoned by my own people, Elena made me believe I was worth saving. She made me remember that I was part of something bigger than my mistakes. Zara's voice grew stronger as she continued. "The shadow creatures fed on despair. They were strong because we gave up on each other. But Elena never gives up. She taught us that pack bonds don't have to be just about blood or species. They can be about caring for others, even when it's hard." Elder Narathai smiled. Wise words from one so young. "But, young Zara, you too showed great courage. You could have stayed hidden, accepted the label of cursed. Instead, you sought help for your pack. I learned from Elena that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means helping others even when you are scared." The council deliberated in whispers for several minutes. Elena could hear the crystal dome responding to their voices, creating a complex harmony that somehow conveyed the weight of their discussion. Finally, Elder Narathai stood. "Human Elena Vasquez, the Pack Council has reached a decision. You say you want nothing from us, but we insist on giving you something anyway." Elena tensed, preparing to politely refuse whatever honor or reward they wanted to bestow. "We give you family," Elder Narathai continued. "From this day forward, you are Pack sister to the Kithra people. Your ship will always find safe harbor at our worlds. Your words will carry the weight of Pack wisdom. And should you ever need aid, you need only sing the Pack song, and we will answer." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't a title or a reward. This was belonging. These people were offering to make her part of their family. I'm honored, Elena managed. But I'm just a human. I don't know your songs or customs. You know the most important song, Zara interrupted. The Song of Hope. You taught it to me, and I taught it to my pack. Now we'll teach it to everyone. As if summoned by her words, all 12 council elders began to sing. Their voices blended with the crystal chamber's acoustics, creating a melody Elena felt in her bones. It was the same song Zara had sung in the Dead Zone, but richer now, fuller. Join us, Elder Narathai invited. Elena looked at Zara, who nodded encouragingly. Elena had never been much of a singer, but she tried to add her voice to the harmony. To her surprise, the song seemed to adapt to her human vocal range, creating a place for her in the melody. As they sang together, Elena felt something she had never experienced before. True belonging. Not just acceptance or tolerance, but the deep knowledge that these people considered her one of their own. When the song ended, the chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the crystals. There is one more matter, Elder Narathai said. Young Zara, you were cast out by Pack Leader Gorvain of the Outer Reaches. He called you cursed and refused to take responsibility for his mistake. What would you have us do about this? Zara was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see the cub struggling with the question. It would be easy to demand punishment for the pack that had abandoned her. She would have every right to want revenge. I would have you teach them what Elena taught me, Zara said finally. That making mistakes doesn't make you cursed. It makes you someone who can learn to do better. The wisdom in those words left the entire council speechless. Even Elena felt humbled by the young Kithra's capacity for forgiveness. It shall be as you wish, Elder Narathai said softly. Pack Leader Gorvain will be invited to learn from his mistakes rather than be punished for them. As the formal ceremony concluded, Elena found herself surrounded by Kithra, wanting to meet her, to hear stories of human space, to understand how someone could risk everything for strangers. She answered their questions as best she could, but she kept looking for Zara. She found the cub on an observation balcony, looking out at the singing forest below. The afternoon light made Zara's brown fur shine like copper. Having second thoughts about forgiving your old pack? Elena asked, joining her at the railing. No, Zara said. I was just thinking about what you said, about how sometimes the smallest person can make the biggest difference. What about it? I used to think that meant I had to be bigger, stronger, more important. But now I think it means something different. Elena waited for her to continue. I think it means that small acts of kindness can change everything. Like you stopping to help a lost cub, or me deciding to trust a human. Small things that grow into big things. Elena smiled. That's very wise. I learned from the best teacher. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the crystal city pulse with light as the Kithra went about their evening routines. Elena felt a peace she hadn't known in years. Elena, Zara said suddenly. Yes. What happens now? Will you stay here? Elena considered the question. Part of her was tempted to stay on this beautiful world with these generous people. But she knew that wasn't her path. I have to go back to space, Elena said. There are other people out there who need help. Other lost cubs, maybe. Zara nodded sadly. I thought you'd say that. But, Elena continued, I was wondering if you'd like to come with me. I could use a crew member who knows how to sing hope into existence. Zara's eyes went wide. You want me to come with you? On the Wandering Star? Only if your family approves. And only if you want to learn how to help other people the way we helped your pack. Zara practically bounced with excitement. Yes, I want to learn everything. I want to help everyone. Elena laughed at the cub's enthusiasm. It won't always be easy. Space can be dangerous and lonely. You taught me that nobody has to be alone, Zara replied. Besides, someone has to make sure you don't do anything too brave and stupid without backup. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Elena felt a rightness about this decision. She had come to Kithra Prime to return a lost cub to her family. Instead, she was leaving with a new family member of her own. Sometimes the best rescues were the ones that rescued the rescuer too. 6 months later, the Wandering Star hung in the shadow of a massive cargo station at the edge of the Helix Nebula. Elena sat in the captain's chair, reviewing the latest distress call that had come through their communications array. Beside her, Zara worked at the navigation console, her small fingers dancing over the controls with practiced ease. Another mining accident on Tertius 7, Elena said, reading the report. 60 workers trapped in a collapsed tunnel system. How far? Zara asked without looking up from her calculations. 4 days at maximum warp. The local rescue teams estimate the workers have enough air for 6 days, maybe 7 if they stay calm. Zara's ears twitched in concentration. I'm plotting a course that takes us through the Kepler shipping lanes. We can pick up medical supplies at the way station on Kepler 442b. Elena smiled at how naturally Zara had taken to the rescue business. The young Kithra had learned ship operations quickly, but more importantly, she had brought her own unique perspective to their missions. Her ability to sense emotions and connect with frightened people had saved lives that Elena alone could never have reached. Computer, Elena called. Prepare for departure. Set course for Kepler 442b, maximum sustainable speed. Course plotted, Captain. Estimated arrival time, 14 hours, 22 minutes. As the wandering star accelerated away from the station, Elena reflected on how much had changed since their adventure in the dead zone. Word of their rescue had spread throughout the sector, bringing them more calls for help than they could possibly answer. But it had also brought them something unexpected, other helpers. The door to the bridge chimed, and Dr. Sarah Chun entered carrying a medical kit. Dr. Chun was a human xenobiologist who had joined their crew after they rescued her research team from a plague outbreak on Rigel Station. She had stayed because, as she put it, "You're doing the most important work in the galaxy." Medical supplies loaded and secured, Dr. Chun reported. "I've also prepared emergency surgical kits in case any of the miners need immediate treatment." "Good thinking," Elena said. "Any word from Marcus?" As if summoned by his name, Lieutenant Marcus Webb appeared on the bridge, carrying an armload of technical equipment. The young human engineer had signed on after Elena saved his colony ship from pirates. He specialized in rescue equipment and had designed several tools that had become standard for their operations. "Portable atmosphere processors are ready," Marcus announced. "If the tunnel collapse has created toxic gas pockets, these should clear the air long enough for extraction." Elena nodded approvingly. Over the past 6 months, their small crew had evolved into an efficient rescue team. Each member brought unique skills, but they all shared the same commitment to helping others. "Computer, open a channel to the Tertius system. Let them know we're on our way." "Channel open, Captain." "Tertius 7 Mining Control. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the rescue ship Wandering Star. We're en route to your position with medical supplies and atmospheric processing equipment. ETA is 4 days, 18 hours. Please respond with current status of trapped personnel." The response came back within an hour. The voice on the comm was strained with exhaustion and worry. "Wandering Star, this is Operations Manager Kellum. We've lost contact with the trapped miners, but our deep sensors show life signs. The problem is geological instability. We can't dig down to them without risking another collapse." Elena studied the geological data Kellum had transmitted. The mine was built in an asteroid with an unstable core. The initial collapse had created a cavity around the trapped workers, but any vibration from above could bring down the entire remaining structure. "This is going to be tricky," Marcus said, reviewing the data. "We can't use conventional drilling or excavation techniques." "What about a precision transport?" Dr. Chin suggested. "If we can get a sensor locked through the rock layers, transport signals can't penetrate that much dense mineral," Elena replied. "We need line-of-sight contact." Zara looked up from her station. "What if someone went down through the existing tunnels? Found another way to reach them?" "Too dangerous," Elena said immediately. "The whole system is unstable. But someone small might not trigger another collapse," Zara pressed. "Someone who could squeeze through spaces an adult couldn't reach." Elena turned to look at the young Kithara, recognizing the determined expression on her face. "Oh no, absolutely not. Elena, you taught me that helping others sometimes means taking risks. I didn't teach you to volunteer for suicide missions. You're barely 8 seasons old." Zara stood up from her console, her spine straight with resolve. "I'm old enough to make this choice. And I'm the logical choice for the mission. I'm small, I have excellent night vision and hearing, and I can sense if people are in distress." Dr. Chun cleared her throat. "Actually, Zara has a point. Kithara physiology is well suited for confined spaces and low-oxygen environments. And her empathic abilities could help locate the miners if our sensors can't penetrate the rock." Elena felt a familiar mix of pride and terror. Zara was showing the same courage and determination that had led her to seek help for her pack all those months ago. But the thought of sending a child into a collapsing mine made Elena's stomach twist with fear. There has to be another way, Elena said. Maybe there is, Marcus said suddenly. What if we don't go down from the surface? What if we go up from below? Everyone turned to look at the engineer. Marcus was pulling up a three-dimensional model of the asteroid on the main screen. Look here, Marcus pointed to the bottom section of the asteroid. The mineral density is much lower in this region. We could potentially drill up from underneath, avoiding the unstable areas entirely. The Wandering Star doesn't have mining equipment, Elena pointed out. No, but the station we just left does. I saw a deep space mining rig docked there. If we could convince them to help. Elena felt a spark of hope. It was still dangerous, but it was better than sending Zara into a collapsing tunnel system. Computer, open a channel back to Helix Station. It took 3 hours of negotiation, but Elena finally convinced the mining rig captain to help. The rig, called the Iron Maiden, was equipped with precision drilling equipment designed for asteroid mining. Captain Torres agreed to meet them at Tertius 7. This is why I love working with humans, Captain Torres said during their planning session. You're all completely insane, but you get things done. The plan they developed was complex but elegant. The Iron Maiden would position itself below the asteroid and drill a precision shaft upward, stopping just short of the cavity where the miners were trapped. The Wandering Star would provide sensor guidance and medical support. Once the shaft was complete, they could send down rescue equipment and medical supplies, then extract the miners one by one. What's our margin for error? Elena asked. Marcus ran the calculations one more time. If we're off by more than 2 meters in any direction, we either miss the cavity entirely or trigger a collapse that kills everyone. No pressure, Dr. Ch muttered. The rescue operation began 36 hours after they reached Tertius 7. Elena watched from the Wandering Star's bridge as the massive mining rig positioned itself beneath the asteroid. The Iron Maiden was an impressive sight, a kilometer-long ship bristling with mining equipment and industrial machinery. Iron Maiden, this is Wandering Star. Beginning sensor sweep of the target area. Copy that, Wandering Star. Drilling systems standing by. Zara was at the sensor station, using her enhanced senses to supplement the ship's instruments. I can feel them, she said softly. 63 life signs clustered in a space about 30 meters wide. Wait, Elena said. 63? The report said 60 miners. There are 3 additional life signs. Smaller, weaker. I think there might be children down there. Elena's heart sank. Children at a mining operation usually meant families of workers who lived on site. If there were children trapped in the collapse, the stakes had just gotten much higher. Iron Maiden, be advised we're reading additional personnel in the target area. Precision is even more critical than we thought. Understood, Wandering Star. Beginning drill sequence now. The next 6 hours were some of the longest of Elena's life. The mining rig worked slowly and carefully, advancing centimeter by centimeter through the dense asteroid rock. Elena and her crew provided constant sensor guidance, adjusting the drill path whenever they detected unstable areas. Drill depth now at 400 meters, Captain Torres reported. Estimated 15 meters to target. Life signs are still strong, Zara reported, but they're starting to show signs of oxygen deprivation. How much time do we have? Elena asked. Dr. Chun ran the calculations on her medical scanner. In those conditions, with that many people, maybe 4 hours before we start losing people. Elena felt the familiar weight of command decisions. They were so close, but 4 hours wasn't much time if something went wrong. Iron Maiden, what's your estimated completion time? At current pace, another 3 hours. But, Captain, I'm reading some concerning vibrations in the rock structure. The drilling is creating stress fractures. Elena closed her eyes and made one of the hardest decisions of her career. Iron Maiden, increased drilling speed. We need to reach them faster, even if it increases the risk of collapse. Captain, that's an order. Those people are dying down there. The next hour was terrifying. The mining rig's drills worked at maximum speed, sending vibrations through the entire asteroid. Elena could hear the groans and creaks of shifting rock through the ship's hull sensors. Several times, they had to pause drilling as minor collapses occurred in other parts of the mine. Drill depth at 500 meters, Torres reported. But, Captain, the stress readings are off the charts. This whole asteroid could come apart. 5 more meters, Elena said grimly. That's all we need. Zara suddenly sat up straight at her station. Elena, The children are in distress. They're having trouble breathing. Iron Maiden, emergency speed. Now, the massive drill roared to life at full power. Elena watched the depth readings climb. 501 meters, 502, 503. Contact, Torres shouted. We've reached the cavity. On the main screen, Elena could see the drill shaft emerging into a large open space carved out by the original collapse. Emergency lights flickered in the darkness, revealing a group of people huddled around three small forms. Life support team, prepare for immediate deployment, Elena ordered. Dr. Chun and Marcus suited up in environmental gear and rode the lift down through the newly drilled shaft. Elena watched through their helmet cameras as they reached the trapped miners. The scene was worse than Elena had expected. The miners were exhausted and barely conscious from oxygen deprivation. The three children, ranging in age from 5 to 12, were unconscious and showing signs of severe hypoxia. Medical emergency, Dr. Chen reported. The children need immediate evacuation and treatment. Get them up here now, Elena commanded. One by one, the rescue team brought up the trapped miners. The children came first, rushed to the Wandering Stars medical bay, where Dr. Chun worked frantically to stabilize them. Then came the adults, most barely conscious but alive. As the last miner was brought to safety, Elena felt the familiar mix of relief and exhaustion that came at the end of a successful rescue. But her relief turned to alarm when Zara suddenly grabbed her arm. Elena, the asteroid is shifting. The drill hole destabilized the core structure. Through the view screen, Elena could see the asteroid beginning to break apart. Massive cracks spread across its surface as the internal structure collapsed. Iron Maiden, emergency evacuation. Get clear of the asteroid now. Both ships' engines roared to life as they raced away from the collapsing asteroid. Elena watched through the rear sensors as the massive rock slowly tore itself apart, creating a field of debris where the mine had been. All hands, damage report, Elena called. No damage to ship systems, the computer replied. All rescue personnel are stable. Elena slumped in her command chair, feeling the adrenaline drain out of her system. Another successful rescue, but it had been close. Too close. Captain, Dr. Chen's voice came over the intercom. You need to see this. Elena found Dr. Chun in the medical bay with the three rescued children. They were conscious now, breathing normally, and talking excitedly with Zara. What am I looking at? Elena asked. The oldest girl, Maya, she's been telling me about what happened in the mine, Dr. Chen said. Apparently, when the collapse first occurred, she kept the other children calm by singing to them. Elena felt a familiar warmth in her chest. Singing pack songs, Zara added excitedly. She learned them from a Kithra trader who visited the mine last year. She's been teaching the other children. Elena looked at the young human girl with new respect. You kept everyone's spirits up by singing? Maya nodded shyly. The Kithra trader said music could chase away fear. When everything got scary in the dark, I remembered what he taught me. Elena exchanged a look with Zara. The pack's songs were spreading, carrying hope across species and star systems. What had started as one small cub's cry for help was becoming something larger. Maya, Elena said gently, would you like to learn some more songs? As the Wandering Star headed for the nearest medical station to transfer the rescued miners, Elena stood on the bridge watching the stars wheel by. Zara sat at her usual station, but Elena could see her mind was elsewhere. What are you thinking about? Elena asked. I was remembering the first time we met, Zara said. When I told you our pack was lost. And I realize now that I was wrong. Our pack wasn't lost. It was just scattered. Now we're finding the pieces and putting them back together. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. Dr. Chun reviewing medical data, Marcus designing new rescue equipment, Zara coordinating with the medical station. They came from different species, different worlds, different backgrounds. But they were united by a common purpose. You're right, Elena said. We're all part of the same pack now. And when someone in the pack gets lost, Zara added, we bring them home. Elena smiled as she watched the stars. Somewhere out there, other people were in trouble, other voices were calling for help. But they wouldn't be alone for long. The pack was growing, and its reach was spreading across the galaxy. She had learned something important from a young Kithra cub. Sometimes the most important thing you could say to someone wasn't, everything will be okay. Sometimes the most important thing was simply, you're not alone. And in the vast darkness between the stars, that made all the difference. Computer, Elena called, scanned for new distress calls. 3 emergency beacons detected. Captain, shall I plot intercept courses? Elena looked at Zura, who nodded with determination. Set course for the nearest beacon, Elena commanded. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. As the wandering star changed course toward its next mission, Elena felt the deep satisfaction that came from knowing they were exactly where they belonged. The pack was strong,